5 players you should be avoiding going into your 2023 fantasy football draft coming into this year. Let's get straight to my first player. That is George Kittle. This may be a little bit controversial, but I don't want anything to do with George Kittle coming into this year. Currently tight end 4 in the community. He is my tight end 8. When you really think about his ADP and his price, he is currently going around the 5th round. I've seen him going as early as the 4th and maybe even as late as the 6th round, but normally averaging around the 5th round draft area. And look, you think of this offense, you think of the target share. I think he's going to be the 4th target on this team. CMC target number 1, Deebo Samuel target number 2, Brandon Ayuk target number 3, and then George Kittle being the 4th target on this team. Yes, Brock Purdy is back. You expect him to be under center with this offense, leading this offense coming in out of that injury, to be completely honest. But when you really look at this opportunity from George Kittle, you look at what he did this past year, it might be a little screwed. Finished tight end 3, 11 touchdowns, averaging 13.4 fantasy points per game. I think that's exactly why we are seeing George Kittle being drafted in that area. And let me give you a little bit of history. Out of the 7 years George Kittle has been in the league, he's only played 1 full season for Kittle. He's had 11% target share when all of them were on the field, meaning that he is losing a significant amount of targets when Deebo, Christian McCaffrey, and Brandon Ayuk are on the field, which is significant. Yes, we're going to have these up and down games, man. Hey, maybe George Kittle pops up a 25 points per game, but there's going to be a lot of inconsistencies coming into this year. If CMC now on this team for a full year, Deebo Samuel can stay healthy, Brandon Ayuk still ascending, I'm not necessarily sure if I want to be paying that price with George Kittle right now. If I'm talking about the 5th round, that's kind of where Justin Fields is going. Lamar Jackson, you think of Jerry Jeudy, you think of all these great wide receivers and running backs going around that area. Why not punt that tight end position 2, 3, 4, even 5 more rounds later and still get a tight end like an Evan Ingram, who only finished as the tight end 5 this past year, averaging 10.4 fantasy points per game. That is my hypothetical. Obviously, George Kittle, my first must-avoid player coming into the 2023 season. My second running back on this list who has been up and down that you should be avoiding coming into this year, that is Jonathan Taylor. Yes, the elephant in the room is that he is currently holding out or injured. We really don't know what the true statement is or what the true thing is. What we do know, he's not with the team. He's not practicing. He's on an excused absence. Jonathan Taylor looks like he's going to be holding out, but what's crazy is that he's still getting drafted in the 2nd and or 3rd round of our mock drafts in our community. He's currently ranked as the RB8 on Underdog. He's my RB15 right now. And that may sound absurd. Don't get me wrong. I respect Jonathan Taylor as a talent. I still believe he is a top 5 dynasty, even a top 8, I would say, running back coming into the 2023 season if he plays. But hypothetically, when you are watching this video and you're saying, well, my draft is in 24 hours and you still don't know the questions and whether if Jonathan Taylor is going to be starting in week 1 coming up this year, why would you be drafting Jonathan Taylor as your RB8? Risk aversion at all costs. I don't care if it's the 2nd round, 3rd round. You only draft him at value, and this is why he's my RB15. You think of the running backs that are going around that RB15 range. Was that a Joe Mixon? You think of a Miles Sanders, Aaron Jones. You think of Dameon Pierce, James Conner, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ramondre Stevenson. I'm thinking about taking all those guys right now over Jonathan Taylor if we don't know the opportunity, if we don't know if he's going to be on the field. Not only that, even before all this nonsense came out, I did bring out a video of why you should be avoiding Jonathan Taylor. I also brought out an article on flockfantasy.com. It's probably a good time to plug flockfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here. Articles, rankings, and so much more over there on Flock Fantasy. So definitely go check that out. But when you go read that article and I kind of break it down, I think I'm more concerned about Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, probably one of the best quarterbacks coming out since Cam Newton broke, all these NFL combine records, being a beast of an athlete. And he's a mobile quarterback first. And with the limited amount of history that we've seen with a top 5 talented running back, especially drafted in the top 5 in the NFL draft, and somebody who is a top 5 running back in the NFL currently in Jonathan Taylor, we really haven't seen that mesh together. We know that when you think of a mobile quarterback like the Lamar Jackson, like the Kyler Murray, like the Josh Allen, like the Justin Fields, we always say you should avoid those guys because you expect those running backs to get less workload. You expect the Jonathan Taylors, the James Cook, all these guys, the James Connors with Kyler Murray. We always tell you to avoid him because of the rushing upside and the goal line opportunities that are going to be taken away from them by their quarterback. But here, everyone's still believing in Jonathan Taylor just because he's going to be with Anthony Richardson. It's a bit confusing to me. This is why he is my RB15. I am expecting him to have a regression coming into this season. Even before all this nonsense, he was my RB9. Right now, if Jonathan Taylor was practicing right now with his team, he is my RB9. So I'll be close to consensus with Underdog's ADP. But now that he is no longer with the team, quote unquote, on an excused absence, I'm going to be avoiding JT as much as possible. And once again, if he's back, let's have a new conversation. We'll have a reevaluation. But if your season starts right now, or if he's not back before week 1 of the season, I am avoiding Jonathan Taylor at all costs coming into the 2023 season. My third must-avoid player still at the running back position. Before we get into it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know which players you are avoiding coming into the 2023 season. And my third player on this list is Breece Hall. He's currently RB11 in the community, my RB17. Damn, Badake, why you have all these guys so low? Where's the disrespect? I feel like a lot of people are going to ask me. Risk aversion, guys. Right now, if the season started, are you comfortable drafting Breece Hall or Jonathan Taylor? I think the answer is no. You can't. I don't think you can confidently say that Breece Hall is going to return an RB11 finish. I don't. I really don't. Because now let's kind of get into that, and let me tell you why I'm avoiding Breece Hall. Because when you think of the past and you think of all these running backs that have been in this situation, and the one I always go to is Saquon Barkley. And this is really the closest one I can really compare because he was the most recent running back that has torn his ACL, who has been a top 5 caliber running back like Breece Hall. Saquon Barkley, when he tore his ACL, he tore it early in the season. We were saying, okay, Saquon Barkley is going to be returning this next year, and he's going to be the same Saquon Barkley he was. They were going to ramp him up. He was going to get all the opportunities. Saquon Barkley is going to be 100%. Kind of the same conversation a little bit we were having early in the offseason with Breece Hall, and now Breece Hall is a little bit shaky. We don't know if he's going to be on. He's on the PUP list, when he's going to be ready. Are they going to sign Dalvin? Are they not going to sign Dalvin? All those things are question marks for somebody that is being drafted in this, either the second or third rounds of your drafts right now. And you're telling me you're happy to take him as RB11? No, thank you. No, thank you. And here are some players that are currently going around Breece Hall right now that I would rather have. Mark Andrews, DK Metcalf, Lamar Jackson, Amari Cooper, Deebo Samuel. Sometimes we see Jahmyr Gibbs go after him. Sometimes Joe Mixon, Jerry Jeudy goes after him. Breece Hall sometimes. And there's so many question marks coming into this season. And when you look at the history of the running backs who have torn their ACL and their ADP, and if they return their ADP, they haven't. Here's this graphic on the screen right now. Running back fantasy finishes their first year off an ACL tear in the past 5 years. There's one running back in the most recent who we all probably drafted in the second or third round saying, well, this guy's going to come back and be really strong because he is Saquon Barkley. He finished RB30 that year. He is not... I think history is going to repeat itself here with Breece Hall, unfortunately. As much as I want him to be back and healthy and be my top 5 running back, my RB1, my RB2, getting him at a quote-unquote good value, I don't think this is the right value for him right now. If I'm drafting Breece Hall, I am drafting him knowing that he is just going to be a fill-in piece. He is somebody that's probably going to be my RB3 on my team, not going to be my RB1 or my RB2. The history also shows that there's only 2 running backs who have truly come back from an ACL tear the year that they tore their ACL and had a top fantasy finish, and that is Jamal Charles and Adrian Peterson. 2 anomalies that we haven't seen in a very, very long time. If Breece Hall is that, I'm happy to be wrong. Kudos to him. Please be wrong. But we are drafting Breece Hall right now in the hopes and expectations that he's going to be ready for week 1, that he's going to get 100% of the workload, that the Jets aren't going to sign another running back. I'm just honestly really risk aversion here when it comes down to Breece Hall and or Jonathan Taylor. So he is my next avoid player. My 4th must avoid player coming into this season, who's a little bit going in the later rounds that people are still talking about, people still believing he can still be this person at 30 years old. Essentially 2 years I feel like he hasn't played in the league, and that is Michael Thomas, wide receiver 49 in underdog right now. He's my wide receiver 70. I'll be completely honest with you, he is completely must avoid. I am not drafting him. I think he should be undrafted. I know that sounds harsh, that sounds crazy. I see him fluctuate from all the way as high as round 9 to as low as round 13 or 12, depending on the people I am drafting with. Our most recent draft, he went at the 11-1. I'm still avoiding him at that price and at that cost, at all costs, to be completely honest. And yes, the history was there. Coming in 2016, wide receiver 7, 2017, wide receiver 7, 2018, wide receiver 6, 2019, wide receiver 1. I hear you. Michael Thomas is the slant king. He is the guy. If he is healthy, he could be something phenomenal. But this is 2 years now. He has struggled with injury. This past year in 2022, he really only played 2 games, week 1 and week 2, where he did see a decent amount of targets, called 5 out of 8 targets, had 20 fantasy points, but he did have 2 touchdowns that game. Same thing in week 2, called 6 out of 9. You know, had 15 and a half fantasy points, and then he got injured. Michael Thomas, I would agree, if he does stay healthy, he can easily be a guy that can catapult himself and be a top 25 wide receiver. And you're getting him at the 11th round. But at this point in time, I'm not necessarily sure if I'm willing to take the risk even at those later rounds, because I'm willing to really handcuff something or pick up another wide receiver I believe has a similar upside to a Michael Thomas at that area. Here are some players going around Michael Thomas. I see quarterbacks: Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, David Njoku, a Rondale Moore, a Dalton Kincaid, a Samaje Perine if Javonte Williams is not ready. These are some players that I would rather take. Look, maybe these guys, I kind of said that some of these guys may have top 25 finishes, but some of these guys I believe are going to be a lot more consistent, giving you fantasy points, whether that's 9 to 11, whether that's 11 to 15. Michael Thomas can easily get you that without a doubt. But I think it's going to be a dead asset and a waste to pick, and you're probably going to hope and wish that you drafted one of these other players. Maybe you draft Javonte Williams early in the 6th round, and then you wish you got a Samaje Perine because Javonte Williams is not ready, but instead you drafted Michael Thomas and he's injured. Do you get what I'm saying? Maybe James Cook you drafted in the 7th round and Damian Harris was available, but you drafted Michael Thomas, and Damian Harris is the tight end monster that you were expecting, right? Maybe Rondale Moore you passed up on, even though, you know, Colt McCoy is peppering him with targets, but Michael Thomas is hurt. I would rather go with all those players over MT. I know the history is there. The history is 2 years removed, and he's still dealing. You look at the videos in training camps right now, he's not even running full sprints. He's jogging, trying to do the cuts. Go look at the tape. Go look at the film. I know it might only be training camp, but if he's still not ready right now in training camp, 2 years still dealing with the same injury, why would I want to be drafting Michael Thomas right now? So I might be a little bit harsh. A lot of people might disagree there, but Michael Thomas is my 4th must-avoid player on this list. Okay, going into my last player on this list, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, all right, guys? Mike Evans, my player 5 on my must-avoid player list coming into the 2023 season. Currently, according to Underdog, wide receiver 34. My rankings, wide receiver 46. Look, I understand another wide receiver who has a history of being a top 5. I mean, you know, even finishing as a top 1, top 2 wide receiver in his past history. And he has always been a consistent top 20, 25 wide receiver. But I think this year is a little bit different, okay? This year has to be different. He's going to be 30 years old this year. He probably is. He's 20 29.9. So he has a couple more months until he turns 30 years old. But the difference is the quarterback play. The quarterback play with Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield is not something that I want to be investing in, even with Chris Godwin, okay, in a redraft perspective specifically. With Mike Evans, I love the talent, right? Finished wide receiver 16 this past year. That was with Tom Brady. 2021 wide receiver 8 with Tom Brady. 2020 wide receiver 10. He's had the history with Jameson Williams, who has been a gunslinging quarterback in the past as well. We understand that. But what we do know is that Baker Mayfield does not support fantasy wide receivers. There's only 1 year in Baker Mayfield's career as a quarterback who has supported a top 15 wide receiver, and that was Jarvis Landry for one single year. One single year with Baker Mayfield, who has supported a top 15 wide receiver. I don't see that changing here with Mike Evans, excuse me. I don't see that changing here with Chris Godwin. Maybe this is the best wide receiver room you can arguably say that Baker Mayfield has had. Maybe if you don't like Jarvis Landry or OBJ or whoever else was on the Browns team, I just don't see the consistency in how Baker Mayfield can support someone like a Mike Evans unless he's just slinging the ball and is a different Baker Mayfield, a little bit more mature. I am not willing to take Mike Evans right now in drafts. And when you look at people that are going around and or before Mike Evans, he just went at the 7-6 in our latest mock draft. People that went right after him: Javonte Williams, Jahan Dotson, James Cook, Brandon Cooks, George Pickens, Quentin Johnston, Cortland Sutton. I would rather reach a little bit more. Darren Waller. What about Trevor Lawrence? These are all these players that I would rather have over someone like a Mike Evans coming into this season. So once again, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, and George Kittle are my top 5 players that you should be avoiding coming into the 2023 season, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Go to flogfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here, and let me know which players didn't make the list and who players you guys are avoiding coming into the 2023 season. And as always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.